West Michigan. This is Pamela Kine from Grand Tap Media, and this is Breathe In the Grand Show. And the spirit of the show is helping West Michigan to become neighbors. And boy, do I have a very special neighbor for you to meet today. He was somebody that connected with me on LinkedIn, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But he does some amazing workshops that I was very interested in. And then when I came to his class, which he is a professor at Central Michigan University, I was able to speak in front of his class and learn all about what he does and the trainings he does. So I'm going to kind of go over this real quickly. I'm kind of a little bit behind today because Addie, my assistant, is out sick today. So I'm trying to get all this done, and my husband's homesick. So bear with me. But the neighbor I'd like you to meet today is Dr. Kai Sorensen. He is a process specialist. He puts on trainings on leadership. He coaches individuals and companies on conflict management, problem solving, diversity training, culture building, and network expansion, and a lot of other things. So I want to introduce you to Breathe In the Grand Show, Dr. Sorensen.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I hope that was okay.
Oh, sure.
Addie usually puts up something together. Well, I have some questions, and for my own sake, but I really want to. What we do here on Breathe In the Grand Show is we tap right into it, because I love asking questions and getting what you do in our community in West Michigan.
Sure.
So I want you to share a little bit of why you reached out to me when you're doing your bio, and then what you do at Central Michigan, and of course the workshops that led to that.
Well, sure.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me here
Well,
today.
thank you for being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We connected on LinkedIn. I saw your interest in Toastmasters, and so I reached out because I was teaching a class in public speaking here for Central and Grand Rapids, and thought it would be great for them to have a example of what a good Toastmasters speech and presentation looks like, in case they were interested in going forward and joining Toastmasters once they left my class. So I really appreciated you coming.
I appreciate you reaching out to me. I remember when that happened, I quickly called my husband. I'm like, a doctor from wants me to come and be and speak.
Yeah.
And we're going to go into how opportunities have come by overcoming public speaking issues, which I had a heart for. But when I came to your class and was able to do that, but then I learned all the other things that you do, and then you sent me all your resume. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I couldn't really get it all into that. So please share with us, what is your interest in helping people develop that part, which is still what, number one, number two fear people have?
Right.
And you put that on. So can you share a little bit?
Well, in my experience, communication issues have been the crux of most problems that we have in personal relationships, but we also have in business relationships. And so improving communication skills can be very powerful in helping you advance your career in terms of a business, or in terms of having a quality relationship with the people in your life. So the more you understand about how communication works and how it doesn't work at times, the more effective you're going to be, because you can choose to use the principles that will allow you to be effective. So
you are a doctor, and you went to Kent State. I saw that.
Correct.
Okay, and so what is your doctorate in?
It's in speech communication, interpersonal and organizational communication. So I focus both on interrelationships between people and interpersonal communication, and I also focus somewhat on organizational communication, how people behave in organizations and how we can develop better organizational climates and working relationships.
Okay, so and then you decided what? Did you do your workshop first? The workshops that we're going to talk about that you have coming up here, or did you go into a university setting and said, you know what, I needed to teach this? I mean, how did this?
Well, I've been teaching. Yeah, I've been teaching at the college level now for 40-something years, off and on, mostly on. And for the last few years, I've been teaching primarily as an adjunct at community colleges in Illinois. I lived over there for 12 years. I taught at many of the schools over there. And since I came back, I've been teaching for Central in their adjunct program. So I offer courses around the state. So I go to their centers in each of the state. There's one here in Grand Rapids, which is where we met when you came to see me. I just completed a course in Virginia down there for one of their remote programs to help people get master's degrees. So I try to be as flexible as possible in terms of traveling to these locations, and it's been a really enjoyable part of it. But for the most part, my focus on it has been to come at it from a perspective of this is going to help you in your life. So it's not so much about helping them to figure out how to get an A in their class.
Right.
It's to give them some skills so that when they leave my class, they'll be more aware. Now, whether they use the skills or not, that's of course up to them. But if they don't learn anything more than why they're having challenges in communicating with someone, they begin to realize that it's not the other person's fault.
Well, I mean, you're dealing with a lot with, besides public speaking and the leadership, the coaching,
Right.
the conflict management is, you're probably, I mean, I like that term, but it goes way, problem solving, diversity training, culture building. Could share with me, if I was to own a company, which is such as my husband is part of a company.
Right.
I mean, what are you bringing to them that, that's going to help them? What do you see? I mean, what do you see some of the problems that you over and over again that's causing some of the stagnant in some of these companies? And usually I will tell you, people will tell me all the time, I deal with HR.
Absolutely.
More than anything else.
Right.
And they go, and when you're a supervisor or leadership, that's all you're dealing with today. Do you think it's getting worse than it was years ago, or that's always been the case?
Well, when I did consulting for organizations, primarily I'm dealing with the HR department, whoever's running the HR department, because they're the ones who are in charge of bringing outside trainers in to help their employees learn better skills or learn better strategies in terms of being successful on the job. So I've worked in the quality assurance area. I worked in there in the 90s and did a lot of work down in the Detroit area with Tier 1s and Tier 2s to Ford, GM, and Chrysler. And our strategy there was to help people learn how to work as a team instead of always looking out for themselves, to get them to sense that if the team's going to work successfully, then I have to do certain things. It's much like sports. 10 people on a football team could all be doing their job and one guy isn't, and it's not going to be successful. So it's really about building a trust and a confidence between the employees that they know who's got their back, and they know that I'm going to be expected to complete this position, but I can't complete it if you don't complete yours. And so how can I communicate when issues come up around that issue? So conflict is inherent in any organization or in any relationship, whether it's marriage or parent-child or sisters or mother-father, whatever it happens to be.
Well, you've been doing this a long time, but when you go into companies, can you quickly figure out what the issue is, or is it always like maybe one person that's holding the team back, or it's the way the the leadership is? Do you usually, can you see,
Well, typically, if I'm asked to come into a company, it's because they have a specific need, and I've been recommended or referred into them. When I was teaching for Central in the 90s, I would get a lot of referrals from my students who would be in my class, and they'd say, oh, you need to come and talk to our company about this or about that, depending on what we were dealing with in the class. And so I've had the opportunity of working with a lot of companies, big and small. I've worked with manufacturing companies. I've worked with sales companies. I've even worked with credit unions, if you can imagine.
My husband's in the credit union business, I will tell you.
I did a lot of work with credit unions.
Credit unions,
because
right.
They're
smaller,
in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
And they were, they're smaller, but the problems are the same.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I worked with them in terms of team building with their executive team, which was very important. But I also worked with them in terms of the way that their associates deal with their members. I know that they're not customers in credit unions, they're members.
And there's owners,
Right, and so I would come in and talk to them about how to sell. Because one of the frustrations that many executives in credit unions have is that their line associates are afraid to ask the member to open new accounts.
Yeah.
A lot of people join credit unions because it's on their way home and they can stop and cash their check from another bank. And that's why they join. They pay the $5, whatever the fee is to be a credit member, and then they just come to the window and they cash their check because it's on their way home. Their own bank isn't convenient.
Right.
And so they wanted me to come in and help the associates learn how to upsell and say, oh, I see you have you have a checking account with Bank of America. Have you thought about opening an account with us? And they're terrified to do that.
Yeah, that you sound
Because
just like
they don't
my
want to
husband.
hear no.
Yeah, that's what he says
They don't want
too.
to hear no.
They don't want to hear no, and that's the thing you gotta, when you're talking about. I think that let's talk about how the public speaking and all that comes in because you're up there. Now I think that public speaking will open up so many doors, and that's why when you reached out to me, I thought, I'd be happy to share that. I'm not sure if I shared it in the way that you do in your classroom, but you see that.
Well,
so let's talk about
well, that's
your
why
passion
I love
on that.
Toastmasters, because Toastmasters isn't just about public speaking. It's about learning how to run a meeting. It's about learning how to evaluate how other people are presenting their ideas and giving them positive feedback so that they can continue to improve. There's a lot of value in courses like public speaking where you get up and just practice giving impromptu speeches. Dale Carnegie.
Right.
But in Toastmasters, you get the whole experience of being able to organize and run a meeting, which is a skill that may be as challenging as public speaking is how do you run an effective meeting?
Right. Well, even an interview, right?
Sure.
Anything you do. But you did very well in Toastmasters because we shared that. You had some leadership roles.
I did. And part of that strategy for me was to build a team of people that would support my vision. And I'm really proud to say that I think in all of the history of Toastmasters International,
right,
I'm the only district governor. When I was district governor of the Michigan, Ontario district here, I'm the only district governor who had 4 future international directors on my team.
Wow.
I had 4 of my people go on to become international directors.
That's huge. If anybody doesn't know Toastmasters, that's huge.
It's huge.
Right.
And I'm very proud to say that they were part of my team and they helped make my team successful. But it's all about supporting those people in what they wanted to do and to say, no, you're going to do it my way or no way. And I let them be them,
right,
and they continue to grow and excel. And that's a leadership issue. So sometimes I'll come in and work with companies that say, I've got somebody here who's got a lot of talent, but he's just not a very good leader. And I could work with him individually in that way, sort of a coaching perspective as well. But certainly if anybody wanted some coaching, I could do that external to the company. The company doesn't have to hire me to come in and coach this leader. The leader can hire me. And I'd be happy to help he or she.
So you would go in the individual and say, look,
sure.
they're not
Absolutely.
reaching their full potential. Something's
Correct.
holding them back. Whatever it could be. When you get into people's psyche of what's holding them back, it's usually it's a something that happened,
Right.
and maybe they're not even aware of that.
Well, one of the things in Toastmasters, and I'm guessing you've seen it too, Pamela, when you're out there doing your trainings, there are people that are incredibly gifted, but they don't believe they are. And all they really need is for somebody to just say, have you thought about being an area governor?
That's what happened to me.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Somebody saw that in you. And so maybe it's, well, okay, I don't want to be embarrassed by saying, no, I don't want to do that or whatever. Whenever the person might say yes, maybe they have a little inkling that that's going to be something that they could try. Well, once they do it and they discovered that they have these qualities that somebody else saw in them,
right,
that can help launch them into bigger and better things in their lives, not just in Toastmasters, of course, but in their relationships with their family or even in the business world.
Well, okay, so when you're in a Toastmaster, and you'll be able to help me share this, I highly recommend it, and I recommend, of course, your workshop. But if you weren't ready for an area director, there's so many other leadership roles. I mean, just
Secretary of the club.
Sergeant at arms,
Exactly.
right?
Well, that's how I got into Toastmasters.
Yeah.
I was teaching a class in Missouri when I lived out there.
Okay.
I had an 83-year-old student in my class.
Oh my gosh.
And she was the sergeant at arms of her Toastmasters club. And she came and invited me to come to the Toastmasters club.
That's exactly how it works.
How I got involved again.
Yep, I joined Toastmasters, we shared why I did that. It's because I just knew that was the kind of the cave I had to go into to reach a different level, go down a different path. And plus, you give your power away to other people that you, like I said, can you present for you?
Right.
Your ideas at work, and you probably deal with that.
Sure.
And people don't realize once they can overcome that and share with us when you've seen that and say to themselves, okay, you present this, all of a sudden everybody puts you at a different platform. It doesn't matter if you did a sucky job or not.
Right.
You got up there and did it. And people don't really remember all the details, you got up there. People always have their eyes on who's at the podium, right? Who's talking. And then once you start sharing your ideas and learn to perfect it over time, you just can't believe the doors that open up. You know what I'm saying? So when you're talking to somebody out there, it's still number 2 or 1 of the biggest fear. Okay, share with me why you think that still isn't being conquered at a younger level. Why is we not seeing it as a muscle you can in school? It's like, put that kid up there. I don't care. Talk about his shoes or talk about his dog. What do you think on why it's still such a major fear people have?
Well, I think it'd be easy for anybody to observe this. Go into a 2nd grade class here at Hudsonville or wherever,
Right.
and watch the kids interact. And the teacher asks them something, and they're raising their hands, and they're having a lot of fun, and they're all sort of trying to figure out their roles, and then go into a 4th grade room, and you won't see any of that.
Well, what happened?
Well, they feel embarrassed because, okay, how much is 10 plus 6? 14! Now that kid's going to get teased mercilessly on the playground. Even the teacher might unknowingly shame that student. Oh, wrong again, Billy. And that's what happens. The kids learn to shut their mouths because it's not safe. And so what I say to people is, you can go and practice Toastmasters or practice speaking in front of the mirror all you want to, but if you have to go and speak in an environment where you don't feel safe, then that fear is going to be difficult to overcome. And so in my classes, which you came and spoke to, I have them do very short, insignificant, so to speak, speeches. Like tomorrow night, I'm going to be going down to teach in Clinton Township, and my students are going to have to get up and give a 2 to 3 minute speech of tribute, where they have to honor somebody
That's tough.
that they want to give an honor to. Okay, and the whole purpose of it, I don't grade it. I just give them the points for doing it.
Right.
But the point of it is for them to feel comfortable and know that everybody else in the class is in the same boat they are, and that they're all pulling for each other. And nobody's going to laugh at them or whatever the case might be. They're safe in there. And sometimes I have students who I don't feel are so safe. And so I have to be sure to make that environment safe for them, so they'll know that they're not going to get any negative feedback from anybody in my class. I just won't allow that.
Okay, well, where's the line, though, Dr. Sorensen? That, and I see this a lot in public. I go, look, nobody promised you're never going to suffer. Nobody promised you're never going to be embarrassed. I mean, where do we build that muscle? Because you can give them a safe environment in your classroom, but there's the real world.
Oh, sure.
And then we want to prepare you for the real world.
Right.
And when you get, like, I always use this on people. Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face, right?
Right.
You bomb.
Sure.
And in Toastmasters is very encouraging, and you have platforms in Toastmasters, I think, to get that feedback. But for you, your classroom goes out the room, right?
My classes, they get all that feedback as well.
Right. Well, positive, but there is the real world.
Absolutely.
And so how do you prepare them in your classroom? Look, we want to encourage you, but you're going to get people that are going to be bored in
preparation. It's all preparation. If you feel confident in what you're talking about, then you're helping to make yourself safe, because you know going in that you're the expert. And so that's what I tell them. I say, you're going to do a speech in my class, an informative speech. You're the subject expert on that speech. The rest of the students don't know anything about what you've researched because they had to go research their own topic.
Right.
And so when you stand up there, not only hopefully the environment is, you feel safe talking to them, but you have the confidence in what you're saying. And so that's the kind of thing, for instance, as much as everybody who never worked for Apple revered Steve Jobs,
right?
Not the people that worked there, because when he would go into a meeting and they would be subject matter experts and he would start berating them and shaming them in front of the rest of the team, not so safe.
No. But
that's what I mean. Even though they were subject matter experts, sometimes you're going to have that response. And
people are going to ask you questions, and what do you, I mean, so you're saying, do you have like methods or to say, you know what, you're not always going to, not everybody's going to be in there paying attention.
Right.
That's one thing we deal with today, right?
That's right.
And then not everybody takes your information that it's something they need to take, to do, right?
Sure.
You're telling people, right? And sometimes it just, we're not interested now. After you just gave a whole presentation.
Well, I'll give an example. I was asked to come in and talk to a state agency back in the 90s when I was living in Lansing. One of my students worked there and said, we're having a problem in the department, and I'd like you to come and talk to my manager. And I said, great, I'd love to. And what had happened was this woman had been promoted to run this department. It had always been run by a man before, and so she had a different leadership style. And the way that the department worked were that the managers all had a secretary, and the managers would hand off their work that they needed to get done to the secretary and to meet the deadlines. Well, she didn't like that flow. So what she wanted was all of the secretaries to be a team. And when a manager had an issue that he needed to have completed, the team would select the best secretary to handle that job. That would be a sense of quality and assurance or quality improvement. You might be a great secretary on this kind of project, but not the best one on that kind of project. And so she wanted the team of women to come together and do that. Well, they had never been trained or coached to do that.
Right.
And so it didn't work. And so what happened? The manager would keep coming to his secretary, and she would keep doing it for him on the side. It would never come to the group. And she said, I want you to come in and help me do some team building with the women. And I said, great, I'd love to do that. I can really help in that. I said, but you're going to have the managers there too. And she said, why? I said, because they're not isolated. The managers are coming and asking them to do side jobs for them. You've got to get them on the boat too. And she says, well, I don't have the resources to have the managers all come to this too. It's just the women. I said, well, then don't hire me. And she said, you're saying don't hire you? And I said, I can come in and teach them team building. It isn't going to work. You're not going to like it. And I'm not going to be able to get a referral. So she wasn't willing to do the whole thing. And that's when you asked me before, what's going on with this process improvement or the process work that I do.
Right.
That's the core of it, is that nothing happens in isolation. There's always a process. And if we can work within that process of constructing a speech, running a Toastmasters meeting, being district governor of the district, or simply how am I going to attract more customers to what it is that I want to sell, or what's the process that we use with our associates dealing with people come in cashing their checks from other banks. It's a process. It's not simply something somebody does or doesn't do. It's how it fits into the whole picture.
Yeah, that's exactly when I saw that. I'm listening to you going, well, that's exactly it. But how do you, when you put them all in a room, I think more the concern that I would have if I were the women at that time is to show your frustration, your conflict you have with other people, right? Because you have conflict in here, management, but there's people that come into these meetings and they have some real issues with certain staff members.
Oh, sure.
Because I went through a John Maxwell. You've ever heard of him, right?
Sure.
And I went through one of their training, and that was one of the things. My staff said, there's no way I'm going to talk amongst the other managers.
Right.
Because they're the problem. You know what I'm saying? They're causing the problem.
So now you're into conflict resolution.
Right. So you're in a management position. You have you're trying to make everything work, right? Especially if you've been put into it where you're not
ideally,
at it.
you're trying to make everything
well,
work.
Yeah, really.
Ideally.
You think
I
you
think
know
your
everything.
husband would object if everybody's trying to make it work at the management level. I don't think he'd buy that.
No, but you can always see it's always, what do you do with the companies, real quickly? It's the white elephant. I mean, it's the white elephant in the room that nobody wants to deal with it.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody could, if you could secretly write it down, it's always one or two people.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Oh, absolutely. I was hired by a manager in Saginaw who worked for the county there in the health department. And he had one specific department that was being run by one man, and he had 6 associates that were working for him, and he was the problem. All 6 of them had the same issue with him. And so he hired me to come in and try to build a team, try to break down, find out what the conflicts were, get them to see if they can all work together. Well, the manager wasn't willing to do anything differently than he was doing.
Right.
And so at the end of the process, I had to sit down with my client and say, I think the only solution you're going to have here is either to fire him. We couldn't really fire him. I said, but move him to another department or find 6 new employees.
That's exactly it. I ended up leaving mine too.
Because he's not going to change.
Yeah.
That I'm talking about in my new workshop is around attuning, and that is
Okay,
attuning to you, attuning to what it is inside of you that you want to express. And if I'm a coach, then I need to attune with you around what it is that you want and what it is that I can do to help you get that. So I can't just come out with a plan, say, all my coaching students get this, follow this, and you'll be successful. That's not how it works. As a coach or as even a salesperson, I want you to be my customer and buy my service or buy my product or whatever the case might be. I need to understand how you're going to interact with this product or this service, why it is you want it, what strategy are you trying to fulfill by buying this or using this or whatever the case might be. And then when it comes to therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, whatever the case might be, they're sitting across the table or in a chair with people that have needs, and they want to be more healthy. They want to be less conflicted, whatever it is that they want. They might want to work past an addiction that they're in. Well, the therapist can't just sit here and say, well, I hear you want to work through your addiction. Right. But frankly, and I love therapists, I love counselors, I love the job that they do to help people. But when you've heard 35 times from 35 different clients what their need is, it's hard to attune with each one of them because I have to maintain my role. I have to maintain that I'm the professional here. I trust how you're going to try to help me. Okay. And in that process, sometimes clients will come in looking to have the counselor tell them what to do, like their dad or mom or something. Okay, this is what you need to do, step by step. Do this and you'll be fine. It doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work.
No.
I need to understand what your need is and what strategies you've been trying to meet it with that aren't working. And so we're going to work on the strategies. We're going to try to find different strategies, and those will come from you. But essentially, if you were my client and we were sitting down there talking, and I said, so how's this interview program thing you're doing on TV? How's that working? And you say, well, I think it's going pretty good. I get people in and I like talking to them, and sometimes it really flows and sometimes it doesn't. And so, I'm wondering what it is I'm doing differently. And so, can you help me so that I'm more open and I might say, okay, well, how do you approach your clients? How do you approach the people that are
enthusiastic?
Well, how are you going to learn, figure out what you're going to talk about? What is it about this client or this person you're interviewing? Of all the things I gave you here, you picked out a few things that you wanted to talk about.
I still have to look at those too.
Well, I'm just saying.
Right.
Of all the things that I have, those are the things you picked out. And so if you said to me, sometimes they pick out stuff and it just doesn't go well. I try to keep drawing them out and ask them, and I pick things that I think the audience would like to hear, but it just isn't going very well sometimes. So, how can I find better things to pick out? And I would say to you, you're picking out the things that you're interested in.
Of course.
They might not be interesting to the people out there, but they're interesting to you.
Correct.
They might not be interesting to me. You could pick things on here that you might want me to talk about, and I'd say, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Oh, I know. Well, that was an interesting title.
I did that 25 years ago.
The new limits,
not doing it anymore.
Okay.
Well, now we're stuck, and now what do we do? Now.